Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So this week we're going to talk about chipping, and I made one video a while back on my channel just going over kind of what club to choose, but in this video I want to go over technique, a couple things from the setup, from face on, side view, and then I'll just kind of go over some main issues that a lot of people face, and then a really cool tool that you can use to help get the right feel for impact and kind of post-impact positions. But if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. And if you are new to my channel, please subscribe because that'll really help me to create more videos like this for you guys. Now let's get into it. Now, I just want to talk about the definition of chipping. So technically chipping is a shot that has very minimal carry and mostly roll. So with chipping, you typically don't want to get the ball super high in the air. You want to get it to land quickly and let it roll most of the way. So now when we're hitting it such a short distance, when it comes to chipping, we're just basically taking away all the movements in your golf swing that produce power, okay? We're trying to make the stance very, very narrow. So you can kind of see I put the width of the club head right between my feet. And I like to kind of get people to flare out this lead foot, you know, a couple degrees open, because that'll just help you pivot easier in the follow through. You know, a very standard chip, you can kind of place it right in the center of the stance. If you want to change up the height, you can just change up your ball position, like put it in the back, off your back foot, or more off the front foot. But for a very standard chip, right between the feet, right in the center is okay. So now the next thing is if I look from the side view, my distance away is much closer. So a lot of people set up to a chip like they're going to hit an iron shot. You can see all this space right here. So that's going to make it easier for your hands to kind of work separate from your body. But with chipping, because the wedge is shorter, everything's a bit closer to you, you want the handle to be a little bit more upright. And that's going to make it easy for you to use the body pivot a little bit more. Right? You kind of see everything's a bit more together, as opposed to it was away here. I'm gonna hit the shot kind of like this. So we want to make sure that everything stays more so with the body as we chip. Okay, and that way you have to get your hands a little bit closer and the handle a little bit higher. From the front view again, with the stance very, very narrow, I like to tell people to place, 70% of their weight on the left side, okay? But the correct way is not to just push your hip like this. You don't want to do that because you're going to create this kind of separation right here, okay? And that's going to cause you to kind of hit the ground first. So when you're shifting your weight, you want to focus on like your chest and your belt kind of leaning slightly ahead of the golf ball, right? So you want the buttons of your shirt and the belt to be about an inch forward. And that's basically going to dictate where you strike the ground, okay? Which is still has to be forward for the most part, because we want to do everything we can to control the strike so that it's easier for you to control the distance. If we can't control where we strike the ground and it always changes, okay, then it's going to be hard to control your distance. It's going to come off at different heights. It's going to roll out differently. So we want to try our best to kind of keep the contact as consistent as we can. So that's one really great way, is to get the belt and the buttons of the shirt positioned an inch left with your weight about 70% on the left side. Now a chip is typically 20 yards in, typically, okay, just a general rule. So now you typically don't have to go past about waist high. If you go up to waist high and then on the way through, you can see that I'm kind of pivoting around my leg. So my left leg is right here. I'm not sliding past, I'm just going right around that leg. The club is going around my body. So when I go through this, you can see that I'm not swinging the club straight. You don't want to swing anything straight. You want to make sure that as you pivot your body, you finish with the handle kind of near the left side of your hip. This is kind of straight with the club straight down the target line. I'm actually swinging it more around me this way. Most people don't actually pivot their body enough. They actually stop and they try to flip the club like this. Okay, but what I'm asking you to do is to pivot your body around. So belt and chest is kind of facing the target. The handle is kind of facing the left hip, kind of down near your waist still. If you just watch me do like a basic chip, okay? Now I'll make this really small, okay? When I'm doing this, right, you can see my weight stays left. My body is facing the target. The handle is kind of near the left side of my hip, still waist high. It doesn't really go beyond that. for like a very basic chip where you're trying to carry it quickly and let it roll. So I want you to pay attention to my club face. So when I go through it and when I pivot, you see how my club face, it doesn't really turn over. I'm not turning this over. You want the club face to actually stay square and go more with your pivot. Okay? So you can kind of see with the handle really close to my left hip, the club face is kind of still almost facing back at me or kind of angled in this manner here. So if I go through the shot, I see this all the time, they kind of flip the wrist and kind of turn that club face over to where it's pointing more to the side. So you want to make sure that as you go through it, the club face remains square, it's facing back at you, face angle is kind of a little bit more upwards. So again, if I just demonstrate that, see I'm pivoting around my body, not going straight down the line, finishes near my left hip, face is kind of angled up. The other big mistake that people make is that they move the handle kind of backwards like this. Okay, so they're almost hitting it with the shaft almost leaning backwards or the shaft too straight up and down with chipping. So you can see at address, I still have the shaft leaning forward a little bit. So we have to at least, get that to return with, some amount of shaft lean. Whenever someone kind of hits the ball with less shaft lean or even the shaft leaning backward, you'll notice that the handle stops, okay? So I'm going through it, but then the handle stops and then the club kind of overtakes. If you are this kind of player, if you have this specific issue, then we have to learn to kind of get the handle to kind of keep moving forward, okay? And that's why it's gonna help you to pivot around yourself as opposed to just using your wrist like that and just kind of keeping your body really still. To give you guys a really good sense of that, I have my tool here called the Precision Impact Tool. I've made a video about this before, a great little tool that fits on your trail wrist, and it kind of locks your wrist in place so you can't flip it or you can't move the handle backward. It'll force you to kind of keep that angle in your trail wrist so that you can kind of keep moving that handle a bit more forward so then you can kind of get a little bit of shaft lean at impact. Okay, so I'll put that on real quick and I'll show you how it works. I know I've used this in the past videos to talk about iron shots and your impact position, but you can use this just as well for chipping. When I take it back, you can hear those clicks, right? And it just kind of locks your wrist in this extended position with your trail arm. And it kind of prevents you from like flipping the wrist. See, I can't really do much from here. I'll feel some resistance here. You can see I'm like undoing it now. If you are a player that flips it, okay, I can't even do it with this on, but if you're someone that like really flips it this way, then when you go to practice chipping, you can hear like a few clicks, right? And then you can kind of go through it very lightly right here. So it'll feel like you can't get the club head to pass as early as before, okay, because that trail wrist is bent back. So when you have it here, you can practice getting your body to pivot more around so that the handle can keep going. If I do this with one arm, so I'm gonna first make it click like 3 or 4 times, a couple times, okay? Then I'm gonna grip it with my trail hand. And right away you'll feel like the handle has to be leaning a bit more forward than normal. But you can just do some practice swings first, but you'll come through it and then you'll feel as though you have to pivot more around your body here. And you can hit some very basic shots here like this with that precision impact kind of bent back a little bit with one arm, just going back and then kind of pivoting your body through. You can still see that the handle finishes near my left hip. My body's kind of facing the target. Then when you have that same feel, you can take it back and kind of practice swing again. You're feeling like the handle's moving a little bit more like kind of around your body. You're not kind of adding the wrist into it so excessively. If you were to just do, like it's just a small chip to start, you don't have to do a very long chip, but just a very small one. You can see I'm going around myself, okay? I'm still feeling like as though there's a little bit extension there than normal. So that'll help you if you are a player that struggles with kind of flipping the handle backward too excessively. So that'll probably feel as though there's a lot more shaft lean, but if you probably film yourself, you'll probably see that you're bringing the shaft back to more of kind of a normal position at the setup with just a little bit of shaft lean there. That's kind of what you want. We don't really literally want like a lot of shaft lean, but we just want enough shaft lean just to return it back to where you were at address, okay? But again, if you were that player that was leaning it backward, you're probably going to feel like the handle's really ahead, okay? Your body's pivoting, but when you film yourself, in reality, it's probably going to just return back to like kind of a slightly forward position. You can really utilize this to enhance your practice, to give a good feel for your chips. But let me know what you guys think. If you need more information on this product, I will leave the link to the website in the description box. The one point I want to mention from kind of the side view is that most people take the club really low and behind them in the takeaway. So with chipping, you have to make sure that the club gets far enough away from the ground as you take it back so you can hit downwards and around you to the left, okay? So if you take it back low and behind you, it stays really low to the ground. You're gonna swing it too much in this way and you're probably gonna hit the ground first or swing too much up on it. So what you wanna make sure of, again, you wanna feel as though the club, you're picking it up more. It's going a little bit more outside than you think and kind of a bit more above your hands. And then you wanna make sure that you quickly go around yourself, you pivot around your leg, and you kind of finish with the handle kind of near the left side of your hip, just like I was talking about. Again, if maybe I'll hit the shot and replay it in slow motion, but I'll just try to just little pitch. But you can kind of see I'm going around myself. I felt like the club was picking up a little bit further away from the ground instead of it being low and behind me.